Hey geeks and gamers. I'll be doing today's video on the next grouping of races, continuing for the supplements. We're going to be covering the Celestial and the Golem, which both have quite a few subclasses as options. We're going to start with the Celestial, which will cover the more angelic beings that don't necessarily serve a specific god. They have their own agendas. They're very similar to Ascended, but aren't really serving an aspect as much as their own will and how they think they can better the universe. Obviously, with this longer lifespan and this real knowledge of what's going on around them, they get a bit more wisdom. They also have a pretty undeterminable lifespan and do not age physically. If you as a DM want to give them a specific number as a lifespan, that's always fine. It's just they don't really necessarily ever die of old age on average. They are often good aligned, working for progress and unity, because they are trying to help as much as they possibly can and really set the universe on the right path. However, there are exceptions to this where they may get too power hungry or play, more of a fallen angel aspect to their character. They're often a little bit larger than humans. There are variants to that, but they are medium-sized either way. They do have a kind of lackadaisical 25-foot speed, as they're not really in a hurry to get anywhere. They're just kind of going at their own pace. They have the obvious languages of Common and Celestial, and can also use an ability called Arcane Sight, which allows them to cast Detect Magic as a concentration spell, using a standard action. This can be done for a number of minutes equal to their Wisdom modifier, giving them a bit more magical prowess to kind of match their higher feeling, give them really more of that utility feel to what they're aiming for. They also get bonus proficiencies in history and religion due to being ancient beings. And now we'll go into the first subrace, which is the Celestial Dragon. The obvious example being Aurelian Soul. This was kind of a race that was heavily requested by a few of my players. Obviously they being, StarCrafters and having a rather high understanding and existence, they have a bit higher of an intelligence. They also get a base speed of 15 feet, which isn't crazy, but that's just kind of their normal, their lackadaisical glide speed, because they also get Comet of Legend, which allows them to fly 30 feet faster as a standard action, giving them a dash of sorts specific to their fly speed. They also get an ability called Star Surge, which deals 1d4 radiant damage for each 10 feet that it travels. However, it cannot get more than 10 feet away from you or it will fizzle. However, obviously as a DM ruling, that's a little bit weirder to do. As I was running it, you can basically cast it and then move alongside it for as far as you can, and giving players an incentive to try and figure out cool combos to do with that and really give you the feel that you kind of get with Aurelian Soul, where you're bombing people from downtown with this huge Star Surge. The DC on this is cast based off intelligence, and it's cast as a bonus action. If they fail the DC, they take full damage and are stunned for 1 round. If they succeed, they take half damage and there is no effect. This can be cast while moving, but can only be cast once per day. Moving on to the next one, we have the Star Child, which are creatures kind of unknown in origin, but the example would be Soraka. They are divine creatures that really use the power of the sun and the moon, stars, and things like that, without necessarily serving an aspect of any of those things, but are just kind of blessed off the natural magical prowess of the universe itself. They get a bonus in charisma. They're often very supportive, very helpful creatures. Their first ability is Star Call, which deals 1d4 radiant damage to a target within 20 feet of you. You also heal for an amount equal to your charisma modifier if you hit them successfully. This can be cast a number of times per day equal to your wisdom modifier, and is a standard action, giving you not only a little bit of early game poke that you can kind of throw out, but it also gives you a passive heal, which is really nice for early game. You also get Astral Infusion, which is a 1d8 damage to yourself. However, you heal an ally within 40 feet of you for twice as much as you took doing this. This can be cast a number of times per day equal to your wisdom modifier, and is a standard action, again giving you a little bit of super good early game healing. It's really good for stabilizing allies. It gives a pretty decent buff to your healing prowess, whether you're playing a healing class or not. It gives you that extra utility. Very helpful, and with the Star Call, you kind of balance out over time, doing your best to try and keep yourself alive while keeping allies alive. Moving on to the next one, and the last one for this, we have the Wanderer. My example being Bard. They're a little bit more dexterous, they're nimble, they enjoy traveling and seeing, beautiful new destinations, and they're usually more of just in the adventure for the curiosity of it, for the experience and the journey. Their first ability allows them to create portals. It's called Magical Journey, in which they can move through 5 feet times your wisdom modifier. So for example, if you had a +3 wisdom modifier, you could go through 15 feet of solid material. It's a standard action to summon, and anyone can take a bonus action to use the portal. It lasts for 1 full round, so at the start of your next turn, it will go away. However, any allies that pass through it during that time, any enemies that pass through it during that time, can use it using a bonus action, and this can be done once per day. You also have Traveler's Call. For each turn you've continually been moving, you gain a bonus 5 feet speed. So basically, as long as you have moved at any point on your turn, each turn, you'll keep getting bonus movement speed, stacking up to 30 feet. If you're already at your maximum bonus speed, though, you also add your wisdom to all damage as radiant damage, giving you a little bit more poke and sustain on that kind of scout, very mobile, kind of poke-heavy, agile character that it definitely gives off. So there's a lot of different builds that this really can work for. One of the better ones I've seen so far was the Samurai. That's definitely a very interesting concept to me, where they can poke and have this high mobility and get that extra bit of radiant damage. Either way, moving on away from the Celestial, we next have the Golem. This is any creature that has kind of been created as sentient life, any creature that has been crafted by someone else, whether magically or electronically. They're definitely getting a bonus to Constitution because they are constructs. They're very tanky. They're not quite as fragile as most humanoid creatures. They don't age physically, but they do become unstable around 200 years, whether it's the magic weakening or the electronics kind of giving out over time. Their alignment is almost always lawful, as they have kind of a design or a command kind of built into them upon creation. There are obviously exceptions to this. You could let a player play it as kind of a haywire. Maybe it's a robot that had a malfunction, or a slime that turned on its creator. The size is definitely based on the origin. They are all large-sized creatures, but they can definitely vary in height, weight, everything depending on which subrace they are and how the character decides to play it. Either way, their base speed is 25 feet, as they don't really have like a swift, natural feel to them. They're definitely kind of trucking along at the best that they can. They do get one common language and one language of the player's choice, presumably being the language of whoever made them. There is also construct resilience, which makes you immune to poison and disease. As you don't really have an immune system, you can't drastically be affected by either of these. Both of these are the status effects, the condition modifiers. You also get Hardened Shell, which is a bit trickier of an ability because it prevents you from equipping all armor except shields. However, you are getting 1.5 times your Constitution modifier when you roll for your health. This is particularly good for barbarians, monks, specific builds for fighters. It's really kind of a different take on it, where you're building a health tank opposed to having any form of shell around you. You're really relying on pushing through and just having this hard sustain. So we're going to dive into the first one, which is the robot. The example I've given is Blitzcrank. They're a little bit more intelligent, they're calculated, they're very mechanical. They do have their first ability, which is Rocket Grab. This allows you to make unarmed grapples at a 15-foot range. It's basically used as any other form of grapple. You're rolling, strength, proficiency, etc., but you're allowed to do it from 15 feet and bring them back to where you're standing. Well, technically 5 feet in front of you, but each time this is used, the downside is you have a 10% additional chance of breaking the mechanism. So the first time, you have that 10% chance of failure, 20, 30, etc. You also have an ability called Overdrive, which doubles your movement speed and grants you an additional attack if you've attacked this turn. Kind of like extra attack would. These do stack, by the way. The next turn, however, your movement speed is halved. This is counted as a bonus action and can only be done a number of times per day equal to your Constitution modifier. The next example we have is Stone, which is going to be more of your like gargoyles, and the example that I've given in this would be Galio. They're a little bit wiser, they're more in tune with humanity and with who they're trying to help and what purpose they're trying to serve. They don't really have much to gain from trying to force their own benefit. They get their first ability, Stone Wings, which gives them a 15-foot fly speed, but it also gives them half damage from falling, and they can disengage as a bonus action by kind of, short flapping like a little dash. They also get an ability called Shield of Durand, which increases their AC by 1d4 and allows you to intimidate any and all within 15 feet of you instead of just rolling Intimidate on one target, giving you a bit of a taunt of sorts. This is a standard action and can be used a number of times per day equal to your Constitution modifier. Moving on to the next one, because there is a lot of Golem sub-races. We have Earth, which is going to be more of your natural. This is probably some form of magic, the environment fighting back type things. This is an Earth Elemental, essentially. They are going to get a bonus to Strength because of the sheer amount of weight they're carrying behind them. They also get Granite Shield, a number of times per day equal to your Constitution modifier. When you roll Initiative, you gain a temporary HP shield equal to 10% of your max HP, giving you a little bit of extra sustain for prolonged dungeons and the like. You also get Ground Slam when you can strike the ground with an unarmed attack as a bonus action. This is made against all individual targets' AC within 10 feet of you. If this is successful, you deal damage equal to half of your AC, which is kind of hard to manage as a golem, but it gives you a bit of incentive to get unique and creative and see what different kind of capabilities you can come up with to get some combos in there. Maybe you're dual wielding shields, maybe you're getting some items that give you bonus to your AC, some feats, whatever you can really manage with that. The next one we have is Clockwork. The Clockwork is spinning parts and gears. They are, the example being Oriana, a bit more intelligent. They're very kind of finesseful. They are the robot's counterpart as far as a fighter to a rogue. They are meant to be more tricksterous and insightful. They're going to be for the players that want to try and use utility and crafting and get the upper edge through decisions. They do have one negative ability, which is Wind Up. It's kind of a positive and a negative at the same time. You don't ever have to long rest. You basically just get the benefits from being wound. However, instead, when you are wound, it takes 1 hour to do, and it must require an ally who can be long resting to wind you manually. If you've gone more than 48 hours without being wound, you deactivate, which at that point you are treated as incapacitated until someone does eventually wind you, or presumably you are gone if no one ever does. The next ability is very similar but kind of beefed up version of the Artificer ability. This is Clockwork Tinkering, which allows you to create tiny clockwork devices as a standard action. You may have a number of objects equal to your Constitution modifier, and this will last until you recall it back or until it is destroyed. It can have multiple purposes, of which you choose. The first one shedding basically a total of 20 feet of light, starting with the 10 feet of bright radius and dimming as it goes. The next is recording a 30-second message that will play when the device is touched, allowing you to pass messages to allies or give out threats, whatever intentions you can really come up with. The next one is emitting an odor or nonverbal sound that can be perceived up to 15 feet away. This can be used in a number of different ways, whether it's alluring, animals closer with specific smells, or using sounds that may scare off enemies like monstrous howls. You can also create a static visual effect, such as a picture or 50 words or less of text, to pass along ideas, concepts, thoughts without really giving away what or how you are going about something. It's definitely still got a few of the same issues that the Artificer ability does, which is it really requires a lot more thought than most of the abilities do, but at the same time, I'm hoping that beefing it up a little bit will give it a bit more option. As far as how it interacts with the Artificer abilities, I'm basically allowing them to stack so that you have, a pool of one and a pool of the other and can use them intermediately. The next one we have is the Slime Golem, which the example I gave was Zac. They're a bit more dexterous. They can stretch and morph their body to meet their needs and really kind of manipulate their body to get to that effect that they want to get to, whether it's dodging an attack or getting that little extra bit of oomph behind an attack of their own. Their first ability is Cell Division, which allows them to, once per day, upon reaching 0 HP, reconstruct instead of rolling death saves. They revive after 1d4 rounds, and regain 50% of your max HP upon doing so. However, they do still, while doing that, lose any health from damage that they are taking while trying to reconstruct. So for example, if they do manage to deal 50% of your max HP to you, you'll just resume bleeding out. However, if they did 20%, you pop up with 30% of your health, etc. The next ability is Unstable Matter. This gives you a bit more sustain, allowing you to kind of tank out in the front lines and really take advantage of that constitution that you have upon dealing a melee damage, whether it's with your fist or a weapon. You create a blob that flies 5 feet in a random direction of you. If you are close enough to reach it, you can use a bonus action to pick it up, and it heals you for 1d4 HP. This only lasts for a minute. After that, they fade. Additionally, as like a DM ruling, this is really a personal choice. I was allowing it to happen. If an enemy is close enough, they can also use a bonus action to destroy the blobs. Either way, that will be all of the different races for Celestial and Golem. Ring the bell, subscribe, leave a comment below of what you'd like to see, what you liked about these, what you would, hope to see added or changed, and either way, I will see you on the next adventure.